Hello there. I'm Mark Williams. This is a massive banker. Because this programme is about explosives. Everything from the atomic bomb to bangers like these. People use explosives to dig tunnels, demolish buildings, make fireworks, and kill each other in wars. Some people, safely of course, just like blowing things up. We're on a beach in Lincolnshire. It's strictly off limits to the public because it's a military test range. The men working here are explosives experts. Most of what they do is highly classified. It's top secret. Today, they're going to test some high explosives. And I've been given special permission to watch.
We're going to blow this up. It's a large brick-built structure. It's called a blockhouse. There will be a massive explosion inside. And then what will happen is huge volume of gas will expand widthways like that. And it will be a circular shockwave inside a cube. So what will happen is it will fail here. These corners will cease to exist. Not because they're broken, but because this and this and this one here on the other side will just be blown outwards, like just enormous speed. Not only that, but the roof will go in the air, just vertically like that, about 150 feet. And that's the bit I want to see.
Okay, stand by. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now let's see that again. Close up and in slow motion. The explosives inside just 2 modern-day 155mm artillery shells did that, which is amazing, because that's roughly the same explosive power as 600-pound barrels of old-fashioned gunpowder. Now, have a look at this. That's a 1,000-pound bomb, which is roughly the equivalent of 50 barrels of old-fashioned gunpowder blown up on a Scottish moor. That too is worth seeing in slow motion. Notice the shell casing flying past the camera. Bit close, wasn't it? Explosives have come a long way. Gunpowder was the first. It revolutionised warfare. Over £1 million were used at the Battle of Waterloo. Then nitroglycerine was discovered by accident. New, phenomenally more powerful explosives spread over the world. The total amount of explosives in the world today is literally unimaginable. And I'm going to blow lots of them up. And it all started over 1,000 years ago with the Chinese.
Once upon a time, in China, there was a man who wanted to live forever. Quite a lot of men, in fact, because the Tao religion, as practiced in China, taught that immortality was possible. Not surprisingly, the idea caught on, especially with the emperor, who, being the richest man in the world at the time, spent a lot of money getting his alchemists to try and come up with the elixir of life. They made some unfortunate choices, trying to make potions out of things like mercury, arsenic and lead, which, not surprisingly, killed a lot of people, didn't make them immortal at all. But with all this experimentation, with all available chemicals, the alchemists soon came up with something very surprising. Crikey.
And that's how the Chinese discovered gunpowder. Accidentally. Looking for the secret of eternal life. The Chinese had fireworks before gunpowder. They used bamboo, which exploded when you threw it in a fire. They used it to ward off evil spirits, to celebrate, and just to have fun. And once they got gunpowder, they really got going. And there's more. Maybe while setting off fireworks, some Chinaman lost a hand, or an arm, or their life. Whatever happened, the Chinese soon realised that if you could scare evil spirits with gunpowder, you could use it to obliterate your enemies. Gunpowder weapons were born. There are 3 basic types of gunpowder weapons, and the Chinese invented them all.
If you take a cylinder, block it off at both ends and fill it full of gunpowder, it's a bomb. Block off one end and hold it, it's a gun or cannon. Block off one end and let it go, it's a rocket. They created things for besieging cities, for attacking armies, all kinds of fiendish devices. And because they were so pleased with them, they gave them fanciful names like the 1,000-ball thunderclap cannon, the earth rat, the flying free lance, the 9-ox-jar battery, and the flying cloud thunderclap eruptor. Right. Well, it seems like there's only one thing left to do. Let's see what happens.
Ouch! Remember, don't try this at home.
Don't worry, no humans were hurt making these programmes. 1,000 years ago, Europe was way behind those inventive Chinese. The most awesome weapons were huge fighting machines that heaved massive fireballs. But they didn't have gunpowder. That delight was yet to come. A 1,000 years ago, Europeans were killing each other with iron swords and bows and arrows. It was colourful, but it was pretty primitive compared with the Chinese, who by then had gunpowder bombs.
That's not to say that in Europe and the Middle East, they weren't just hitting each other with sticks. They had incendiary devices of their own. The Greeks used an oil that came from the ground, petrus oleum, petroleum to you and me. They distilled it, added some special ingredients and made something that terrified their enemies, Greek fire. It scared them because you couldn't put the flames out with water. What it is brilliant for is if you're being attacked from the sea, because the best way to get rid of ships, wooden ships don't forget, is to burn them. You lob it down on your enemy from your city walls or the masts of your ships, and it sticks to everything. Take that, you waterborne wascals! Right. You could throw the mixture lit. You could shoot a bow and arrow with a flaming bit on the end of it into it, or you could use one of these, a fire lance. Much better.
But the recipe medieval Europeans inherited from the Greeks was based on pitch, wax and oil, not gunpowder, which meant that while it would burn, it couldn't explode. All the medieval Europeans could do was make the stuff into crude bombs by covering it with tar, so that it was even harder to put out with water.
It didn't go out.
So when you tossed it onto enemy houses, they wouldn't stop burning. Which meant that fire was a much feared weapon of European warfare. But Europeans still couldn't blow things to smithereens. Medieval Europeans, though, had one big weapon, and they inherited that too from the ancient Greeks.
Picture the scene. You're doing awfully well for yourself. You're a lord. You've got a modest small holding about 50,000 acres, and you're sat in your castle one night having a bit of swan for your tea when you hear hammering. Unfortunately, you've offended the king, and outside they are building things. Lots of things, in fact. Artillery. Artillery are machines designed to throw things a very long way. Into your castle, in fact. They're building trebuchets. The best thing you can do is get out of the way.
Trebuchets weighed tons and took carpenters months to build using the best hardwood timber in Europe. Some were over 20 metres tall and could chuck balls weighing over 200 kilos, more than 300 metres, over castle walls. Again and again and again.
At Kenilworth in 1266, there were so many balls being thrown, they were colliding in mid-air. At the Siege of Acre by the Crusaders in 1149, Muslim commentators reckon that there were 300 trebuchets in action.
Trebuchets lobbed stone balls, balls covered with flaming pitch, and dead animals into castles to spread destruction, fire, and disease.
Stand clear! Mind your heads!
Everything was about to change. Gunpowder was on its way from China to the west. The Chinese lost the secret to the conquering Mongols, who spread it to the Arabs, from whom it was pinched by the Crusaders. And guess what? Soon, Europeans were behaving like the Chinese. they started making fireworks.
Valencia. It's March the 17th, which is St Patrick's Day. It's also the Feast of St Joseph, patron saint of carpenters. It was also, as you know, Jesus' dad. Now, nobody really knows why this is an excuse for Valencians to have a huge firework party. Who knows? It could be about their Christianity, it could be about an ancient pagan crop enrichment rite.
Whatever the reason, it's as old as gunpowder's been in Europe itself. And why do people enjoy it today?
It's because it's a great excuse to blow things up.
The amazing thing about these fireworks, about most fireworks today, is that they are made in the same way that the Chinese did it 1,000 years ago. This curious collection of sheds is, believe it or not, a firework factory. And Paul, the gaffer, is going to show me how to make them.
What are we going to make then?
Right, this is going to be an aerial shell. That's the bottom half, one half of it.
And this is gunpowder?
That's gunpowder, a mixture of gunpowder and the pellets of stars.
So fireworks
stars.
still use gunpowder?
They do.
Just the same as the Chinese would have done?
Not a lot different.
OK, and what's that then?
It's what we'd call in the trade a stars. Each of these pellets is a star, yeah. It's a piece of explosive composition that would ignite and appear as a star in the sky, coloured star.
And what about these other bits?
Different grades and grains of gunpowder, yes. The pieces you've got there are husks, pieces of seed that's coated in as a liquid slurry of gunpowder and dried.
OK.
It would be sealed so that when the fireworks fired,
it goes.
The hot gas doesn't leak
up like that.
That's right.
And then these are lit, and then it explodes. Yeah.
They're burning for 2.5 seconds as that thing's travelling through the sky.
Right.
And after 2.5 seconds, that's at about 1,000 feet in the atmosphere, and then it'll explode.
But while fireworks are fun to look at, just like the Chinese before them, Europeans soon wanted to use gunpowder for a darker purpose, for war. Across Europe, alchemists and monks tried to make the new gunpowder, to conjure up this most powerful force in Christendom. So awesome was its power, it was believed to be magical. Being an open-minded society, it was preached that those who made it must be in league with the devil. He who possessed the secret of gunpowder could conquer nations. Its formula was written in code to keep it secret.
Salvete discipuli, Latin for greetings pupils. Ecce uomo. Look at this man, Roger Bacon.
Medieval scholar and bad lad, imprisoned by the Pope for his unorthodox views, and a man with a working knowledge of gunpowder. He was the first person to write down a formula for gunpowder in Latin and in code. We know he knew how to make it because later on in his life he didn't bother with code, and this one remained undeciphered until in 1904 Lieutenant Colonel Heim of the Royal Artillery reckoned he'd cracked it. He thought it was an anagram, and all he had to do was rearrange the letters. Right, it's abbreviated because it's a chemical formula. R, abbreviation for take. 7, U and V interchangeable in the Latin alphabet, so that's Roman for 7. 7 of saltpeter. 5 parts of new hazelwood, that's the charcoal, 8 and 5 sulphur. Simple. Let's see if it works.
First stop, Sicily. This is Mount Etna, where Sicilians first found lumps of sulphur. But that was a bit dangerous. So then they mined it and got rich, producing over 80% of all the world's sulphur up until the last century.
Sicily, a bit of a feudal society, and the mines were owned by the local landowners. Consequently, they weren't particularly nice places to work. They didn't bother with anything unnecessary like ventilation, for example. So you have these extraordinary pictures of men working, stripped, not to the waist, but completely naked.
Today the mines are abandoned. They're long gone. And good riddance.
This is what they were after. This is the pure crystalline form of sulphur. What they would have got out mostly would be mixed with chalk and gypsum like this. Really dirty work. They used to call sulphur brimstone, and it was believed that that was the fuel for the fires of hell.
Just imagine climbing up and down tunnels like this every day, carrying loads of rock in the heat, naked.
God, that's a primitive mine. It's just a hole in the ground. Anyway, when you'd lugged your ore to the top, you gave it to one of the kids who worked for you, who then lugged it away. And just in case you have a lingering affection for the mafia, perhaps you'd like to know that the way they started was working for the mine owners, who were also the landowners, and beat up 8- and 9-year-old boys who were too ill to go to work. Puts the Cosa Nostra in a slightly different light, doesn't it?
For gunpowder's second ingredient, you just go down to the woods.
Woodlands and forests remind us of the savages we once were. We were surrounded by them. Every town, every village, every city. We used wood for everything. We built our houses, our tools, our methods of transport from wood. And when we were cold, we lopped some off and burnt it. And being the savages we are, we very soon found a way to refine it and to use it for a very dark purpose. This is Stuart, and he's about to purify this wood, curiously, by setting fire to it. You see, the problem with wood as a fuel is this. All this smoke, all these impurities, this tar. So if you can get rid of all the water and oil and cellulose and other gunk, you're left with this. Charcoal, an almost pure form of carbon. Roger Bacon specified hazelwood charcoal. But over the years, experimentation led to the use of lots of different woods. Dogwood for muskets and pistols. Willow charcoal for larger grained gunpowders, for artillery and so on. Now we need a special ingredient. Excuse me. Thanks. Excuse me, mate. Tough. The reason we're here, not just for that, is because we want drinkers' urine. People who don't drink, their urine is full of sodium. Weak, weedy, no good. You need potassium-rich drinker's urine to make the best saltpeter. And that makes the best gunpowder.
Jet, baby, jet, baby, jet, baby, jet, said jet, baby, jet, baby, jet,
and
1,
again.
2. Jet, baby, jet, baby, jet, baby, jet, said jet, jet, baby, jet, jet, 1, 2. Jet, baby, jet, baby, jet, baby, jet,
And again.
baby, jet, baby, jet, 1, 2. Jet, baby, jet, baby, jet, baby, jet, said jet, baby, jet, baby, jet, 1, 2. Jet, baby, jet, baby, jet, baby, jet, said jet, baby, jet, baby.
That should do. Let's go and gather our harvest.
Excellent. Now let's take our bucket full of urine to a man who has special skills. Suburbia, Chalfont and Latimer, to be precise, at the end of London's Metropolitan line. It's changed a bit since medieval times, but they still know how to refine saltpeter here.
Hello, John.
Right.
Special delivery. About a gallon. This is full of excreta. Nice. Horse manure, cow dung, and as we've just seen, human urine. It's full of ammonia, which is what makes it stink. The ammonia, thanks to the aid of bacteria, turns into potassium nitrate. Saltpeter for gunpowder. All right, John, what do you want to do?
Yeah, you empty the water that's in there into
Yeah.
this bucket,
Yeah.
water that's in that bucket
that
into
one.
this one, and that in that,
That
into
one.
that. Then we've got the sludge there, which we throw away, and then we put the fresh sludge into that one, and then fill that up with more water. And so we carry
And
on.
the chalice from the palace is the brew that is true, but the flag with the dragon. Okay,
Like that.
that'll be enough?
Yep.
Okay. Like all these ancient things, it's more art than science. It's cookery on a big scale. And then,
Fill that up again.
okay, that's coming along nicely, that is. The reason we are taking so much care is because we want one product from this process and one product only. We want potassium nitrate. We don't want any other nitrates, and there are loads here. We want potassium nitrate because that's the one that doesn't absorb so much water. It's not as hygroscopic. So when you've made your gunpowder with it, you can keep your powder dry, boy.
Once you've got your raw ingredients, it couldn't be simpler. You just mix them up.
Charcoal. Sulphur. Saltpeter. Put them through a sieve. Right. It's a nice fresh batch. Let's see what we can do with this.
This is the place.
Let's get medieval. By the 13th century, Europeans had worked out how to make gunpowder. So the next big question was, now we got it, how do we use it? The first answer was simple. Just pretend it was a big bow and arrow. This is the first picture in Europe of a gun. There it is. The bronze vase shooting an arrow. It's from a book written for Edward III, who loved guns. He gave one to his friend, Lionel of Antwerp, and that was the first gun ever seen in Ireland. This is a beautiful medieval illuminated manuscript. So it looks fanciful. Looks like it should come from a book of fairy tales. The gun rests on a silly trestle table, and there's a silly man with silly shoulder pads, wearing a silly dress. Ah. But when you see this modern replica, it doesn't look quite so medieval and silly. It looks hard, heavy, brutal, and dangerous. But it's still the same vase shape. That looks crude. Why? Maybe they were scared of gunpowder and they wanted lots of metal between them and the powder inside. Or maybe they were cleverer than that. Maybe they knew that with their early gunpowder, it needed lots of space to work for the gases to blow the arrow out of the end. Right, let's see what our model of Edward III's first cannon really can do. First, we swap it out. Now for the powder.
One bright morning, without a word.
Then straw for wadding, so the gunpowder really has to push. Plenty of that on the medieval battlefield.
Slipping, sliding, gonna find out where you're hiding. I'm getting into
Then an arrow, like Edward's.
I'm getting into
Let's see what it can do. Not bad. The arrow leaves the muzzle approaching supersonic speed, which is why you can't see it when it hits the target. If you'd been stood behind that door, you'd be dead. And all this with just 50 grams of the new gunpowder. Soon, every king wanted lots. By the beginning of the 16th century in Europe, chivalry was all but dead. The best thing you could do if you were a knight was to give up fighting the good fight and find a good pub. This meant that if you were an armourer, you stopped making suits of armour for dukes and barons and turned to casting cannonballs instead. Just like Colin does today, in his Cornish cottage, using authentic techniques from the armouries of England's Tudor kings.
Now it's hot.
Right.
The technical term is blooming hot. See if we can prise it open. We get there.
Yeah, looking good.
Feel that heat through my gloves, though.
Right, there she is.
There she is. We'll try and drop that in the water.
Quench it.
About a minute to cool.
Right.
We can have him out.
There you go.
We nip him off, we can. With this here.
With the nipper.
With a nipper.
Nice. Like a great big ball bearing. It's very satisfying, isn't it?
It is. Even
Very
more,
satisfying thing to do.
even more satisfying when you shoot it.
Yeah. Right, okay. What sort of damage could you do with this then?
Well, that go right through the front of the house, come out the back.
Really?
Yeah.
Nasty little thing.
All over Europe, bell foundries started forging cannons as well as church bells. It was big business. Blacksmiths got in on the act too, making cannons out of hoops and staves they beat out of hot iron. Soon cannon making was a huge industry, requiring hundreds of tons of iron a year in England and Wales alone. Wars spread across Europe, consuming even more tons of gunpowder. It had become an arms race.
Well, welcome to my world.
It's a cannon garden. That's everybody's idea of what a cannon is, isn't it? It looks like it came off a ship.
19th century cast iron cannon.
Yeah.
Everybody's idea.
Yeah. Whereas that does not look like everybody's idea.
No. It's a Ribaldachin, great-great-grandfather of the machine gun. Used for guarding bridges, guarding gates, or charging the enemy.
Yeah.
Because you load these up with loads and loads of bullets, set light to them, each of the barrels goes off very, very quickly. And something like this has got 7 barrels. This could probably shoot 150 bullets.
Tools of the trade?
Mallets and mops.
You can always use that if you get surprised, can't you?
Oh, yeah.
Right, what else you got?
Oh, come and have a look.
Some people like to make bird tables. Colin likes to make reproduction cannons.
What's that then?
16th century Falcon. This one will 3-pound ball. Long barrel.
So it'll go a long way.
Oh yeah, we'll go.
How
a long
far?
way. Oh, well over a mile.
What's this?
This is a Minion Drake, a 4-pounder.
Right. And you were telling me that when you fire this, afterwards it rings like a bell.
It does. When the round shot or cannonball comes out the barrel, it oscillates, rattles up.
And spins out.
Absolute.
So it's the singing, ringing gun. Right, let's go and see what we do then. There's a gate, let's get out of it.
So Colin and I went down to the Cornish coast to blast away at a few targets to find out what it was like to be an artilleryman with gunpowder cannons. Self-cleaning.
Yeah. Right.
First up, a medieval breech block hoop and stave cannon.
Right.
Run him in good, Mark. Go.
I've never loaded a cannonball that's going to be fired before.
Wow, that was really good. But hang on, Colin missed. So I thought I'd take over as chief gunnery aimer.
I reckon we've just gone a little bit out. We just need to come back just about a centimetre. Is that all right?
Yeah. Can you move that?
About a little bit there. I reckon that, yeah, that might be it. Let's have a look.
Ready for the salad? Yep.
Okay.
What do you mean I'll thump him with the
Right, there you
punner? Mind your head, mind your hands.
I never knew how much work was involved in loading a cannon, or that you could use fresh grass for wadding. This early sledge-mounted cannon fires a 16-pound ball. But we keep missing the target, and instead, we're wrecking the range.
Oh dear, we've broken the range.
But real artillerymen like me and Colin don't give up so easily. So, we load up some 16th century muzzle-loading cannons with longer barrels for improved accuracy and move them closer to the targets. We also generously bump up the amount of powder.
All gone. Main charge going in. That's a kilo.
Goodo.
On top of the half kilo that went in with the ladle.
Ram it right-o.
Yeah, go on.
I mean, really
Give it a good punch.
some.
Yeah.
We really mean business this time.
I'm cannonball.
And it's one of the ones we made in Colin's dining room.
Give it fire.
That went over the target.
Over the top, I will.
Right, okay.
We'll depress the barrel a bit. Mind your fingers don't get caught.
No.
Right, going down.
Yeah.
Let me sight it.
So, if you were in a battle,
Yeah.
you'd be slightly rushing this, wouldn't you?
Oh, nice.
These cannons fire smaller balls, which go faster, so they should be more accurate.
Little special thing. There we go.
Artillery crews trained endlessly and fought together for years. They needed to. No matter how hard we try, we keep missing the target.
God, Bennett.
But we don't give up.
I reckon that's it.
I think that's it. Give it a primer. That one pricked and primed.
Still haven't hit the target yet. But we will. I'm standing back for this one because I think Colin's going for it. So I've been told to retire from the field of combat because his honour as a gunner is at stake because he hasn't hit the targets yet. So stand by.
Yes, we got it! Yes, we got it again!
Right, let's bring on the secret weapon.
The 7-barrelled, late medieval Riboldiquin. It fires hundreds of balls at point-blank range.
Here will do. Right, this should do it.
Give him fire.
That should have done it. Hey, what?
Oh! Covered in holes.
Peppered.
Yeah. And if you were flesh and bone, these wouldn't be neat holes. You'd be blown apart.
Which is exactly what happened to tens of thousands on battlefields across the world and Europe. In the next programme, for a change, some peaceful uses of gunpowder.
That's got it. Right, I've now got a minute. See you later.
How over £1 million of gunpowder were used in one day at the Battle of Waterloo. And Oh yeah. The biggest cannon ever that destroyed a civilization.
Apart from ever cool Gary Lineker, over the years there have been many explosive moments when a sportsman let his red mist descend. Sky One relives 50 of those most heated moments when sports stars see red next. Red mists descend next year on Sky 3 too, in Street Wars.